Hey guys, welcome back to another great game of CDH. I hope everyone is having a good time out there. I know I am. I just saw the full list of the new Kamigawa set, and I can't wait to get my hands on some of those new cards, as I'm definitely going to try and brew something new from this set. Also, if you're interested in playing with us, hop on our Discord. We have an ever-growing community and we'll love to talk MTG or whatever strikes our fantasy. And another benefit is we often let people know when we play and would love to meet some new people. Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board. First up, we have MTG Loots playing Tevesh Kraum. This Grixis combo is a mid-range ad-nos Thassa's consultation deck. It uses cheap interaction to slow the game down and fast mana so you can drop either of his commanders and really start accumulating value. Next up is Fernando on his new favorite pet deck, Jacob Hauken. This is his take on mono blue taking turns list. That lets you use Jacob's front side for early game card advantage while relying on his flip side for some insane card advantage with free spells. And while the deck is a little fragile, I was impressed as I totally overlooked this commander when he was first spoiled. In the third spot, we have Jimmy and Kalamax. And while his dino has made a few appearances on the channel, I know any deck Jimmy brings always has his signature spice added to it. But the core of the deck is still Kalamax. Turn sideways, get swole, and copy some spells with the classic Underworld Breach Brain Freeze win con. And bringing up the rear, we have Hidden Planet X, and a new commander to the channel, Vadrok. This is a reactive combo deck that looks to pursue its combo lines while keeping a handle on what the table is doing. The main combo involves High Tide or Dockside Extortionist, and the biggest appeal of the deck is that all of its pieces are active in the game, and you don't have to hold anything back in your hand due to the nature of Vadrok. But without further ado, let's get on to the gameplay. Jimmy does mull down to 6. Loot starts the game off with a Heart of the Cards draw, and doesn't find the land he's looking for. He plays a Tap Drowned Catacombs and a Mox Opal and Lotus Petal before handing the turn over. Fernando also has a Mox Opal and plays an Emergence Zone as land. Jimmy also ended up keeping a sketchy hand, but is lucky enough to draw a Command Tower off the top and cast the Mana Crypt, which is then tapped for a Talisman of Creativity. Hidden has a City of Brass land and then casts a Jeweled Lotus, and also joins the party as he casts an inactive Mox Opal, ending his turn with a Skirk Prospector. Loots draws, but still didn't find the land he needs, and instead just casts a Mana Vault to turn on his Mox. He then taps out for his commander, Tevesh Zot.
Tevesh? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I should have probably went with Kraum, you think?
I mean, I don't know.
That's a good point. We're going to switch that up. We're going to go with Kraum.
Okay.
You're right. That was the better play. It's too dangerous to not.
Fernando untaps and has an island. He then taps 2 for a Phantasmal Image.
Oh, damn.
He baited me. He baited me so hard. So hard.
Fernando now has a hasty Crown of his own and sends it at Jimmy for 4. Jimmy rolls for Crypt and is safe his turn. He doesn't have another land and casts a Growth Spiral to draw and unfortunately not find a land, passing after that. Hidden starts his turn off with one of Jimmy's favorite cards, Hedron Crab. He then follows that up with a Scalding Tarn to mill himself for 3, milling a Gamble and 2 lands. The Tarn is then cracked for a Volcanic Island, and once again the Crab mills himself for 3. This time it being a Merchant Scroll, Silence, and a Rite of Flame.
I just think I want to try and go for it.
Go for what?
I think I might be able to.
Try and win right now? You mean
I
win?
think so.
Get the fuck out of here. Do it.
I think so. Hidden then sacrifices the Prospector for a red and casts a Dockside Extortionist. This triggers both Kroms, but the Goblin resolves, with Hidden gaining 5 treasures. Hidden then goes into the tank making sure he can actually do this. He sees a line to either mutate onto the Dockside and get either a Gamble for Underworld Breach or Merchant Scroll for a snap to reset the mutated Vadrok. Ultimately, he decides to go for the risky and aggressive play and cracks his Lotus for triple red and uses it to mutate Vadrok onto the Dockside. The mutate happens and Hidden attempts to cast the gamble out of his graveyard. However, Fernando says no to it as he pays 2 life for a mental misstep to stop Hidden in his tracks. Lutz takes 1 off his tap vault and finds a mana conflux off the top. He doesn't like that Fernando is also drawing cards and casts a snap targeting the phantasmal image. This does get rid of the image, but fizzles the snap, preventing Lutz from untapping his lands. He then ends his turn with combat, sending the Kraum at Hidden. Fernando plays and cracks a Scalding Tarn for an island. He then taps 2 for his commander, Jacob Hauken. Jimmy takes 3 off his crypt and still doesn't find a land. He passes, but at his end step, Hidden cracks a treasure for a mystical tutor, but Jimmy is not having it and dispels it. Hidden plays an island as land and mills himself for 3, milling an intuition. 2 mana is then used to cycle a Cloud of Fairies, and unfortunately Hidden is really out of gas, as he then taps 2 more for an Izzet Signet, making him hellbent for the moment. Lutz takes another from the vault and plays a Spire of Industry as land. 1 black gets him a Dark Ritual, and he follows it up with his other commander, Tevesh Kraum, which gets uptick for 2 thralls. Combat is then had, and Kraum heads at Fernando, who takes the hit. Fernando has another island and casts a Scroll Rack. It resolves and he hands it over to Jimmy. Jimmy takes another 3 from his crypt, but doesn't find a land and passes.
Well,
Yeah, that hurts.
we were playing around Kraum. That's pretty good.
I currently don't have the ability to cast 2 spells, so.
Hidden draws and plays a mana conflux and mills himself for another 3. He then heads to combat with Vadrok smacking Tevesh for 3, and Hidden's done after that. Lutz untaps and takes 1. He then upticks Tevesh to try and sacrifice a Thrill to draw 2. But Jimmy has a response as he casts a Verdant Command to counter the Loyalty ability and exile the Intuition from Hidden's graveyard. But Lutz wants his cards and fires back with the delay to put a stop to it. Lutz gets his 2 cards, but doesn't like what he sees and passes, with at his end step Fernando scroll racking to put 3 back on top. He rearranges them and then uses a mystical tutor to try and shuffle. This however is too much for Lutz as he fires back with a Pyroblast. But determined to shuffle his bad cards away, Fernando responds with a Fierce Guardianship. This does trigger Kraum and gets Lutz a card, but the mystical then resolves and Fernando finds a Temporal Mastery to put on top. He then uses Jacob to draw and exile a card from his hand. Fernando untaps and plays an island. He goes straight for his Temporal Mastery, and it resolves. But before going to his extra turn, he then uses Jacob to draw and exile again. Fernando then goes to his extra turn and plays another island. Jacob is tapped again, with Fernando drawing and exiling, but this time he pays the 6 to flip his commander over to Hauken's Insight. Luckily for the table, Fernando didn't have an extra turn spell under there, as he uses the flip side to cast a free Sensei's Divining Top, but is done after that. Jimmy takes another 3 from his crypt, but does find a Flooded Strand off the top to make up for it. The fetch is then cracked for a Tropical Island, and this now allows for the Dino to come out. Hidden draws and plays an island. He decides to keep using his crab to mill himself, and he mills a Chain of Vapor. Lutz upticks Tevesh again and sacrifices his last rope for another 2 cards. He then plays a Luxury Suite as land, and a blue gets him a Ponder. He rearranges the top 3 and draws. A Soul Ring then comes out, following that up with a Mystic Remora. But this time it's Jimmy who takes issue with the fish, as he Fierce Guardianships it. And at the end step, Fernando tops to rearrange the top 3. Fernando exiles the top card of his library on his upkeep, and then plays an Ancient Tomb as land. This, however, is the extent of his turn, and he hands it over to Jimmy. Jimmy is stoked that he actually managed to keep his commander around, and he's safe from the crypts. He then finds a Volcanic Island off the top, and moves to combat, sending Kalamax at Tevesh Kraum. Lutz doesn't block, but Jimmy is nothing else, and the Walker takes 4. Hidden draws, but unfortunately finds a command tower. He plays it and mills himself for another 3 with the crab. Lutz untaps and takes 1 from his vault. He then shocks in a Steam Vents and upticks Tevesh for 2 thralls. He then debates what he should do and ends up settling for a Narset, Parter of Veils. He has a floating mana and decides to use it on a Wheel of Fortune. Fernando is the first to respond by topping. He rearranges the top 3, but lets priority pass to Jimmy, who responds with a Pyroblast, targeting Narset and triggering Kalamax to create a second copy, with this one pointed at Hauken's Insight. This then forces Fernando to respond by spell piercing the copy, but Jimmy does have the mana for it and pays the 2. Apparently, Lutz doesn't really have any other real responses, and assuming the wheel will eventually resolve, pays 2 mana to foretell a card. But Fernando actually does have a response, as he then Flusterstorms to keep his insight around. This does trigger Kraum to have Lutz draw, and then the stack starts resolving. The Fluster counters the copied Pyro, with the original still taking out Narset. But with the wheel still on the stack, Jimmy has another response, as he snaps Kraum back to Lutz's hand and untaps 2 lands. Lutz does get a draw off Kraum, but it still happens, and finally the wheel resolves. It is still Lutz's turn, and he then casts a Mox Diamond, pitching a Reflecting Pool. He has nothing else, but at his end step, Fernando tops. He rearranges the top 3, and then scroll racks for 6 cards to basically get another fresh hand. He still doesn't like this hand either, and moves to his turn. On Fernando's upkeep, he triggers his Insight, but responding to this, Jimmy Natures claims it, triggering Kalamax and sending the copy back at the Insight. Fernando has no answer to that, and the Insight is destroyed, with Fernando still exiling a card face down. He then plays another island and casts a High Tide, and oh boy, would that be a lot of mana. But seeing this, Jimmy guttural responses it, floating a green mana as well. Looks like Fernando must have something expensive in his hand, as he responds by hard casting a Force of Negation, to which Jimmy then uses his floating green on a Veil of Summer, drawing him a card and stopping Fernando. But it doesn't look like this is the end of Fernando's plan, as after that he then casts a Merchant Scroll to go and find a Resculpt, which he was going to use as revenge on Jimmy to exile Kalamax, but has to wait due to his permanents having hexproof from the Veil of Summer. Jimmy untaps, and now Fernando exiles the Kalamax, with Jimmy getting a 4/4. Jimmy then takes 3 from his crypt, and finally removes the last suspend counter on his delayed verdant command. He then uses it to gain 3 life, and exile Hidden's Chain of Vapor from his graveyard. Jimmy then draws for turn, and now is finding all the lands, as he cracks a Bloodstained Mire to find a Taiga. 2 mana then gets Jimmy a Sylvan Library, and he ends his turn with a Paradise Mantle, paying 1 to equip it to his 4/4. Hidden starts with a Windswept Heath, milling a Savine's Reclamation off the Crab, and he then cracks the fetch for a Tundra, milling another 3. He then taps 3 for a Jeska's Will, and Fernando responds by topping, but doesn't see any interaction, and the table then reveals they don't have anything else. To put an end to this game, Hidden then casts an Underworld Breach and reveals a Blink of an Eye to show the table the win. But to go into it a little more, he can then bounce his Dockside pile and then recast the Dockside to gain enough treasures to remutate Vadrok to recast the bounce spell. He then repeats this for infinite mana and can either mill people out with a Brain Freeze or get Thassa for the win. Game review. Well, I guess sometimes patience is key. Hidden was really out of that game after Fernando countered his early tutor. Although Hidden probably should have just waited instead of going for it when he did. And if not for the wheel, he probably would have just sat there drawing lands and milling himself for 3. But luckily for him, Fernando and Jimmy both wanted new hands and stopped the Narset from wreaking havoc. Also, some might be asking why Fernando didn't wait on his removal spell for Kalamax, as he was worried that Hidden would just win once he got a new hand. But regardless, Hidden actually was holding up 2 different counter spells, so the resculpt didn't really matter in the end. Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I just wanted to let you know that we have a TCG affiliate link, and if you ever see a card you want to try or are inspired to brew something new, use our link when purchasing and we'll receive a small portion of the sale. This is a great way to support the channel, and if you enjoyed the gameplay, please leave a like and subscribe, as it really helps us keep making videos. And remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board. I'll see you guys later.